Punk came out in Chicago sporting his Bret Hart t-shirt, and then he decided he was going to jump the barricade, and he came up short on this barricade jump. I mean, this guy nearly killed himself here right before the pay-per-view.
He made it in close enough, didn't he?
He had to reset and climb over. I mean, he came up a bit short on this jump. But when he gets over, the world's most famous fan this week, this dude offers CM Punk his beer. Punk gives him this look. I can't read lips too well, but I think he responded with, "Sir, you are not wearing a mask, and I don't drink."
Yeah. Wrong drink to offer that man.
This was just a hilarious visual of this fan. And then we get our main event with Darby Allin, accompanied by Sting, against Daniel Garcia, with Parker and Lee in his corner, and CM Punk on commentary. What did you think about Punk here on commentary?
Well, clearly, I mean, this man has not wrestled in 7 years, but he has done plenty of commentary, because I thought he fit in really well here. He was always good, even from what little we saw of him in the WWE doing this. He was probably good back in ROH when he was doing it. I mean, it's a career path for him after his wrestling career is done, obviously, if he wanted it. But he seemed very sharp, flowed with, I think, the pace of the commentary very well. I found it more to be almost a half interview, half, him actually calling the match. So, he provided, I think, good enough context for the match with Darby, and also was kind of out there in the role as a scout. So I really liked him reacting to certain spots in the match directed specifically towards him. And
he really tried to be put himself in this vulnerable position. He said he's nervous about Sunday. He was asked about the hometown advantage, and he called it a disadvantage because of the nerves and the expectations for himself. And he said when he was asked about his cardio, he's like, "Cardio's all I have that I can bank on." So it was much more closer to just like a sports presentation type of interview. This was not him doing any kind of, over the top promos or anything like that. It was a guy that's unsure of where he's at. This is his test on Sunday.
Yeah. Something we haven't really discussed so much is, this is his first match back in 7 years, but we haven't really discussed how his style might have evolved, might be different come Sunday. He's been doing a whole lot of MMA training. Maybe those kicks are going to look a lot more convincing than they did 7 years ago. Well,
they definitely put over the rear naked choke in this, as that is going to be one of his key moves. They established that in the commentary here. And in terms of, style, I would expect that there's going to be different wrinkles to his offense and stuff like that. He's also a guy that you look at it and, there's a great amount of wear and tear on his body, both from pro wrestling and just training. The flip side of that is for years now, he has been working with world-class athletes, world-class trainers. Just because he fought twice, this guy was training a significant portion of the last 6 to 7 years. So I think that's another thing that, yes, he's 42, but he has been working with, high level, intense athletes for, day in and day out.
Yep. And really, I think simply being in the space of legitimate combat, I feel may have a chance of influencing his philosophy when it comes to creating a staged, form of combat. So I think there's a chance this might be a very different CM Punk from what we saw 7 years ago, and I'm looking forward to that.
Darby was using the Fujiwara arm bars, and then Garcia was attacking the arm and then choked Darby with his chain around his neck, hit this beautiful superplex, and then it's Daniel Garcia who's staring down Punk from the ramp. This guy is just... He's created such a cool vibe around him. This guy is just, he was not the afterthought in this match.
Not at all. No. And in fact, I think him being in this position shows how much they think of him to put him in a pretty focused segment with CM Punk on commentary for what will likely be the main event. The go home segment for the main event of All Out.
They're chanting, "You still suck" at Garcia. Allen runs into a rear naked choke and then climbs the buckle, and it looked like he bit himself free, and then goes back to the choke in the center. Allen climbs up the turnbuckle and drops himself on top of Garcia to break it. And then we see Darby hit the Pepsi twist, and CM Punk applauds him. He says he does it better than I used to do it. There's a code.
I don't know if that was communicated to the commentary beforehand, but like, I have a feeling maybe it wasn't, and Excalibur was just on top.
Oh, I think Excalibur was completely on top of this. He identified it instantly.
Thank goodness, like, it's Excalibur there, because how many active commentators do you think would have been able to call this, like, deep cut CM Punk move just by noticing it like that?
Yeah,
so that was great.
And then Darby hit a code red, which Punk asked, "What's that?" And they told him, and he asked if all these moves are named after Pop.
Pretty funny, yeah.
And then Darby catches him with the Last Supper in 10:43. Instantly, we go to a brawl with everyone. Punk is hilarious here. He's like milking if he'll go down. He's like, Sting's got this, right? Is Sting okay? And then he gets up and he walks down. 2.0 is backing up, and they back up to the side of the ring. Darby takes out both with a suicide dive, and there he is going face to face with CM Punk as our final visual to go off the air.
First of all, great match, I thought, between like two top guys of the future. Really solid technical wrestling between the two. It was not like a crazy spectacular match, but I thought it was well paced and like spectacular enough to maintain the crowd's attention. And ultimately, I mean, served the purpose of giving Darby a strong win heading into Sunday. But overall, I thought a really good episode of Rampage.
Yeah, I mean, I love these 60-minute episodes. I mean, they breeze by so quick. And while we haven't had a chance to see it, it sounds like the countdown show, especially the segment with Jim Ross doing a sit down with Punk, was outstanding.
All right. If you guys have had a chance to see it while we were doing this podcast, let us know how it was. I'm definitely going to check it out afterwards.
Yes. So we go into SmackDown. Any final thoughts just on All Out? What's going on last, Way? What's going on last?
I really think it's going to be Punk and Darby. I mean, the one kind of like wrinkle in there is if we get the Bryan thing, and if it is the Bryan thing, whatever match he's going to be involved with will stand a chance of I guess, being last. But that crowd is going to peak for that Punk Darby match.
So I did a All Out preview today with Stephanie Chase. If you want to check that out on her YouTube channel, I also linked to it in the update today. And we were talking about this, and like this, if you were to put Omega and Christian on last, are you almost inviting yes chance right from the get-go? Because that audience of all audiences is going to thus have that expectation the second they're putting that title match on last.
It's an interesting question. I think if we were talking about maybe an audience that was maybe more antagonistic with the company, I would definitely say yes. But I think this is also an audience that really respects like the performances of the wrestlers and knows that if they do something like that, it would be disrespectful to both Kenny Omega and Christian Cage, and really AEW for doing it. So I have a feeling like they'll probably try to pay attention to the match. It is Kenny Omega in a main event after all. But at a certain point in the match, if the match goes bad, which I doubt will happen, but you might be inviting it. Now, I certainly feel like you might be setting up the expectation, so if you go off the show without delivering a big surprise like that, maybe there would be a little bit of disappointment.
What if you were to put on Punk and Darby last? Mm-hmm. Punk wins a hard-fought war. It's like a huge celebration at the end, and out comes Kenny Omega with the Elite, and thus they're outnumbering Punk. The music hits, and you have Punk and Bryan fight off the Elite, and we go off the air with the two just embracing in the ring.
That would be insane. Yeah, that would be
like you save Bryan for the end. It's not the expected placement that everyone assumes it would be. Mm-hmm. And that's a really cool moment of Punk and Bryan in an AEW ring together after they go nuts and just fight off the Elite.
I mean, if the idea is to maybe make some waves even outside of your paying customer who's going to be in behind that paywall for the pay-per-view, the image of CM Punk holding up Daniel Bryan's hand as the two go like this, as a mirroring image of, you know, what they did years ago, would certainly be a GIF or a photo that would make the rounds a whole lot.